We're going to start today with a warm-up puzzle that you might do alone or with a partner. That's up to your teacher. Let's take a look. Hopefully, you are going to be able to click and drag. If you've got the Google Slides version, you'll be able to click and drag. It looks like this on the Google Slides. You can just click and drag these pieces. Otherwise, you'll want to cut these pieces out from the bottom of your paper so you can move them around. This isn't as simple as it looks because you can't just find any subject to go with any action to go with any where and when. They've got to make sense. That's what makes it a puzzle because it's only going to work and make sense in one way. Let me show you, for example, if we just grab the first thing that we see, so subject to teacher, action, jumped on the bed, where in the cafeteria, and when fireworks began. The teacher jumped on the bed in the cafeteria when the fireworks began. Technically, we did what it asked, right? We got a subject, action, where, and when, but it doesn't make any sense. So you're going to want to see what goes with teacher and then see which pattern that's going to fit. Go ahead and play around with it and see if you can put together your sentences. Okay, I hope that puzzle wasn't too hard for you guys. It should have been more fun, not as frustrating. So I hope that was the case. Let's go ahead and move on to today's focus, which is comma rules. And we're just going to talk about using commas in two different instances with sentence blocks. You're going to have a page that looks similar to this to glue into your guidebook. So it'll look like this. I went ahead and colored this one. You'll want to color it the same color as on the screen. And we're going to come back and look at these rules after I show you a few examples. All right. So here is the sentence that looks like what we did yesterday. Ginger meowed loudly because he was anxious about the visit. I've color-coded these. You can see that Ginger is the subject. Meowed is the action. Loudly tells us how. That's an action block. And because he was anxious about his visit tells us why, and that's another action block. So what we're going to do today is take one of these two green action blocks and move them to the farthest sentence before the subject and verb. We can do either one first. Loudly. Ginger meowed because he was anxious about the visit. If we're going to move it to the beginning of the sentence, we're going to need a comma in between the action block, so the how block, and the subject and action. Loudly, Ginger meowed because he was anxious about the visit. We could also put the why first and say because he was anxious about the visit, comma, Ginger meowed loudly. I think the second way sounds better. Typically, there's going to be one way that just sounds better than the other. All right. Let's look at the next sentence. The kitten hissed under the chair while waiting for the veterinarian. Again, we're going to start with one of these two groups. Under the chair is going to be a where block, and while waiting for the veterinarian is a when block. So let's start with the where block. So under the chair, and then we need a comma. The kitten hissed while waiting for the veterinarian. What is the other way that we can start the sentence? Before the subject, comma, while waiting for the veterinarian, comma, the kitten hissed under the chair. I think the second one again sounds better here. And let's look at one more before I give you some to do yourself. The cat entered the exam room reluctantly when the vet opened the door. Let's start with the how, reluctantly, comma, move that up again. The cat entered the exam room when the vet opened the door. And finally, we're going to start the last block, which is the when block. So when the vet opened the door, so grab a comma. The cat entered the exam room reluctantly. And again, I think that one sounds better too. When the vet opened the door, the cat entered the exam room reluctantly. So that's how we can start a sentence with an action block, such as where, when, why, or how. We need a comma after the action block and before the subject and action. Let's look at this comma rule, and that's the one we just went over. When a when, where, why, how, or condition block, and all of these are action blocks. So we could say when an action block is placed at the beginning of a sentence, before the subject and a verb, it forms an introductory phrase or clause, and as such requires a comma to separate the introductory block from the main sentence, subject and action. We have the action block with the mischievous grin tells us how, so it's a how block. So we've got how, comma, subject, action, and another, what is on his sister? I guess that would tell how. All right. And so then we have the 3 action series, and that's what we're going to look at next. Oh, actually, before we do that, you have an activity to do yourself. Let's look at the instructions. For each sentence below, color code by highlighting each of the following, and I underlined here. So highlight or underline is fine. I went ahead and put the key up here. Subject blue, action red, nothing's changing, same we've been doing. Action blocks, when, where, why, how are green. Then, just as we did before, move one of these action blocks of your choosing to the front of the sentence. Where, when, why, when, where, why, or how. Be sure to remember, of course, to add a comma between the clause or phrase and the subject. So I did an example for you. I went ahead and showed you where the subject and action are. And so then you can clearly, easily see that we have 2 action blocks to choose from in the gym, which is a where block, and to showcase their experiments, which is a why block. So I chose to showcase their experiments. To showcase their experiments, comma, the pupils presented their science projects in the gym. So you could have chosen in the gym. I don't think it sounds as good, but either is technically correct. So go ahead and get these 8 sentences finished. You don't have to label them. You're just going to color code and then rewrite them with an action block at the beginning. All right, now we're ready to look at our second comma rule. This is something that we didn't look at yesterday, so this is brand new. It's a 3 action series. This is one way to vary your sentence structure, which means make it different from the other sentences around it so that your paragraphs sound better. Let's go ahead and do the activity, and then I'll come back to the definition. It'll make more sense after I show you. All right. So here you notice we don't have any green. We don't have any action blocks. What we do have is 1 subject for each sentence and 3 actions. This is called a 3-action pattern. It's got 1 subject and then 3 actions. Let's look at the second one real quick. The kitten purred, rubbed his head against the vet's hand, patted his dangling stethoscope. That's 3 things that the kitten did. Sometimes I will add in an action block in one of these to help it make sense, and that's totally fine to do. So you'll see against the vet's hand where he rubbed his head. I'm not going to mark that separately in a 3-action pattern right now. I'm just more concerned that you see the 3 action blocks. So we're just going to put that in with the action block for now. All right, so back to the first one. We have the vet and the 3 actions. Stroke the kitten's fur, listen to his heart, and checked his ears. All you need to do is put a comma after the first action block and after the second action block. And you're also going to have an and. The vet stroked the kitten's fur, listened to his heart, and checked his ears. So it's 2 commas for these sentences with free action pattern. All right, so let's look at the second one. We have the kitten purred, rubbed his head against the vet's hand, patted his stethoscope. Once again, it's very simple. Our first comma belongs after purred. Our second comma belongs after rubbed his head against the vet's hand. And then we need the and right there. The kitten purred, comma, rubbed his head against the vet's hand, comma, and patted his dangling stethoscope. Third sentence. The vet vaccinated the kitten, offered some treats, reassured the worried owner. So let's turn this into the three action pattern sentence. All we need to do is put two commas, vaccinated the kitten, comma, offered some treats, comma, and squeeze in an and. I hope you guys are getting the hang of this because it's almost your turn. So we have the vet vaccinated the kitten, comma, offered some treats, comma, and reassured the worried owner. And finally, the kitten nestled into its carrier, closed his eyes, napped the whole way home. So, nestled into his carrier, comma, closed his eyes, comma, and napped the whole way home. All right, so we've got comma and. Now it's your turn. You're going to do something similar to the last activity with the color coding. You can underline or highlight, either's fine. Whatever you have. Of course, we're going to make the subject blue. So the athlete here is blue, and the three actions are red. So the athlete sprinted off the starting line, leapt over the hurdle, and dove across the finish line. And you're going to make sure to add your commas. If you have a green, you can use a green. If you don't have a green, it can just be an ink or pencil. So the athlete sprinted off the starting line, comma, leapt over the hurdle, comma, and dove across the finish line. Again, it doesn't ask you to label these sentences for once. You get a little break from that again, but you do need to color code and add your commas. You're going to go ahead and finish that page. Let's see, it goes to number 10. Let's see how you do. All right, so that's 2 activities down, and we've got 2 more to go today. Let's jump back to our comma rules and look now at that second comma rule. That should make a little bit more sense now that we've done some like that. So a 3-action series. When a sentence includes the 3-action pattern, a comma is required after action 1, and another comma is required after action 2. So here we've got the musician and her 3 actions. So the musician tuned her guitar, strummed a few chords, began to sing, and we separated them with 2 commas, one after the first 2 actions and before the 3rd action. So that's our 3-action series, and those are 2 instances where you're going to need to use a comma. You'll notice that the page next to this is blank. We're going to add more comma rules down here and on this next page as we get to them. Both. Never too many at a time, so it won't get too overwhelming. All right, so the next activity is just a review the last 2 activities. We're going to put them together. Let's move that out of the way. We're going to put the last 2 activities together and see where commas belong here. Before we analyze each sentence for commas, I'm going to color code the sentence as we've been doing. We're going to use blue for our subject. Subject's always blue. I guess you've learned by now. Okay. So we have our subject, the scientist. And what did the scientist do? The scientist gasped, stumbled backward, and dropped her notebook. So that's actually 3 actions, right? So the scientist gasped, stumbled backward, and dropped her notebook. We need to put a comma between first and second, and the second and the third with the and. So the scientist gasped, comma, stumbled backward, comma, and dropped her notebook. Next sentence. With trembling hands, the scientist reached out to touch the alien. So let's go back to highlighting. Scientist is our subject. Reached out Reached out is our action. To touch the alien would be our why. And with trembling hands is going to be how. So you'll notice this sentence starts with an action block or a how block. So that means we need a comma between the how block and the subject. With trembling hands, comma, the scientist reached out to touch the alien. The alien blinked, tilted its head, and extended a slender hand. So we've got another reaction pattern. The alien is our subject. And our first action is blinked. Then we've got tilted its head and extended a slender hand. So let's go ahead and add our commas in here. Blinked, comma, tilted its head, comma, and extended a slender hand. The next sentence, after years of research, the scientist finally made contact with an extraterrestrial being. Scientist made contact with an extraterrestrial being. Notice that here I put the finally in between scientist and made contact, in between the subject and the action, which is totally fine. You can do that, but we haven't discussed it. No need for a comma. It can just be squeezed in there if it is an adverb specifically. After years of research is our when. After years of research, that's where we need our comma because it starts with a when group or an action block. After years of research, the scientist finally made contact with an extraterrestrial being. Because of her groundbreaking discovery, the scientist became a science legend. The scientist is our subject. Became a science legend is our action. Linking, it's fine, it's our action. And our Y group is because of her groundbreaking discovery. So because it starts with a Y group, we need a comma between the introductory block and the subject and action. All right, we've got two more. With a mixture of fear and fascination, the scientist observed the alien's strange form. The scientist is our subject. What did the scientist do? Observe the alien's strange form. And we have our action block with a mixture of fear and fascination. So if we start with an action block, we know that we need a comma between the action block and the subject. And finally, the alien smiled, nodded, and emitted a series of musical tones. So we know that we need two commas. And they go after smiled, comma, nodded, comma, and emitted a series of musical tones. All right, so it's your turn to work on adding commas to sentences. Yours looks like this. So you've got, let's see, about 10 sentences to add commas to. And I want you to go ahead and, in addition to adding the commas, you're going to color code, you're going to highlight or underline, just like I just showed you. I didn't put the instructions. I'm going to go back and add them though. So hopefully they're on your paper that you're seeing, even though they're not on the screen right now. And after this, we've got one more activity to do today. So for the last activity that we're going to do today, you haven't done anything like it. So I want to show it to you and do another similar one with you to make sure you understand what to do. Here's what yours looks like. It says write 5 sentences to describe the picture below. The sentences do not have to tell a story, but you must use the sentence patterns indicated. So we're just writing descriptive sentences right now, not necessarily a narrative yet. So you have the picture to write about and 5 sentence patterns down here. You're going to make up a sentence that follows that sentence pattern. So let's do a sample together. Okay. All right, so we have a picture and I went ahead and copied the same 5 sentence patterns. Once again, we have these 5 sentence patterns, and we're going to look at writing a sentence for each pattern that matches the picture. So she's cute. Let's name her Erica. And let's write a sentence about Erica. So we need 3 actions. And it's okay to assume a little bit. You don't have to keep it literal. It doesn't have to be exactly what's in the picture, but you can imagine what happened before and after the picture. You can even add a few things happening during the picture if you want to, okay? Just keep it on that topic. So let's say Erica, we need 3 actions. Let's say she snapped her overalls, tied her shoes, and bolted to the barn. Erica is our subject. Let's see if this matches up. We have blue, right? She snapped her overalls, tied her shoes, and action 3, bolted to the barn. Let's look at number 2. We have where, subject, action, when, why. Even though it starts with where, I'm going to start with the subject and action, and then add everything else on and do the where last. If I'm writing a sentence and it starts with a where block or any action block, I'm going to do the rest of the sentence first and usually do that part last. Trust me, it is easier that way. All right, so let's say in the barn, the kittens is our subject, action, waited when, while Erica got ready, and why was she getting ready to see the kittens? That's a little redundant. I don't like that. Erica got ready to visit them. How's that? In the barn, the kittens waited while Erica got ready to visit them. So we do have, starting with the where block, in the barn. And then our when group is while Erica got ready. And why was she getting ready? To visit them. Our subject is the kittens. And our action is waited. So as you can see, we have our colors nicely matching up. And that means our sentence is correct. So when you write your sentences, go ahead and color code them. That makes it easier for your teacher or me or whoever to check your work and see what you think is wrong or what you were trying to do, okay? Let's do 3 more. Number 3, we have when, subject, action, where. Our subject for this sentence is going to be, I think I just explained to you to do this last, and then I just came out with it. Oh, I'll show you here what I meant. Sorry about that. All right, so let's do subject, action, where, and then we'll find a when. All right? The kittens is our subject. Our action is waited. No, the kittens wailed. Where? Inside their pen. And when? So let's say, when did they wail? When the kittens saw Erica. Or when they saw Erica. Let's say when the kittens saw Erica, comma, because it's an introductory clause. And we'll change the kittens to they because we don't need to repeat the kittens. They wailed inside their pen, period. When the kittens saw Erica, they wailed inside their pen. That works. So subject is they. The action is wailed. Got a little excited, wailed. Where did they wail? Inside their pen. And when did they wail? When the kittens saw Erica. Number 4 is a super short sentence. Of course, when you're writing different sentences in a paragraph, you don't want to have huge long sentence after huge long sentence after huge long sentence. You'll want to have longer sentences and also shorter sentences that'll make it easier to read the paragraph as a whole with those longer sentences in it. Subject, action, why. That's our cute little sentence. Let's keep it simple. So Erica, let's see what Erica did. Erica, action, scratched each kitten's chin. Why? To calm them down. So our subject, let's highlight Erica, blue and blue. Our action, scratched each kitten's chin. So we have red matching. And why is to calm them down. And then our last sentence, we have how, subject, action, where, when. So let's start with subject, action, where, when, and then we'll add a how. So our subject this time, let's say Erica and the kittens is our subject. Our action is, what are they doing? They're skipping down the road, running, galloping, I guess skipping. I have nothing better. They bounced, they skipped. Erica and the kittens skipped down the dirt road. That tells where. Okay, skip down the dirt road. When? Until they had worn themselves out. So let's check it with the color coding. Erica and the kittens is our subject. What did they do? Skips. And then where did they skip? Down the dirt road. Where did they skip? Down the dirt road. When? Until they had worn themselves out. All right, so that's how you're going to compose these sentences. Now, next week will be writing focused. This week is grammar and sentence focused. Next week will be writing focused. You're going to be writing a lot more sentences like this. This is a little sneak preview of that.